Okay, so someone asked me, well, what's the purpose of all of this? What's the purpose of this virus? What's the purpose of this scrubbing down every surface and everybody's to stay home and now you're to just listen to orders? What's the purpose? Well, there are several, but in this video, I want to just concentrate on one particular purpose as I see it in this hoax lie system. Okay, so for that I'm going to borrow some concepts from history and also from sociology. Now please don't turn me off because I'm using these concepts. I'm a full believer in the mind of Christ, and I'm a full believer in the power and presence of the Holy Spirit. So please bear with me as I attempt to explain a little something about what I think is certainly happening and why it is happening, okay? So first of all, let's go back in time that pretty much society was structured with a two-class society. You had the very rich that had lots of everything, and you had the very poor. And it was pretty obvious. You were either very rich or you were very poor. You were with the in crowd or you were the outside, okay? You had a lot or you had nothing. So the extremes were pretty obvious in history. Now, things will change a little bit with what is called the position of the merchant. Once the merchant comes onto the scene and starts to buy goods from the extreme wealthy up here and distribute them down here, there's the creation of a middle class right here. Now it's not very strong, but it starts to exist in and around, I think, the 1400s. What we call the Dark Ages or Middle Ages. Now, there's some people that think that perhaps even the whole Dark Ages is a hoax. That might be true. I'm only going by pretty much what we're told in the books we have to work with and so forth. Okay? So now you went from a two-class society to a three-class society. Two-class to three-class with just a handful in the middle class. Now something significant begins to happen in that the merchants get a little bit stronger in their positions and more poor are getting into the position of merchant. But something else happens. Now this is where you might say, I disagree. That's okay. You're welcome to disagree on anything that I present to you. I'm only trying to do my best to give you thoughts, ideas, stimulate your thinking. All right? So what happens is called the Reformation. That is with Martin Luther and his presentation of the 95 Theses, and then of course the breaking away from the single controlling agent of the upper class, which was the Roman Catholic Church, headed by the papacy, which is, and all the reformers, incidentally, all the reformers called the papacy Antichrist, and rightfully so. That used to bother me years ago, but now I understand exactly where Luther and Calvin and many others were coming from when they attacked the papacy. You see, because the papacy was up here, and the papacy is your power machinery that controlled the old two-class society up here. Now, when the merchants came along, we got the third class, or the middle class, and now the Reformation comes. Now, according to Max, you want to say Weber, but actually is pronounced Weber with a V sound. Max Weber proposes the Protestant ethic. Now, what does he mean by the Protestant ethic? Well, his theory, and again it's a theory, was that those who became Protestant wanted to show they were, quote, of the elect. And the way in which, and the manner in which they showed that was by being industrious, working hard and getting ahead. Now you're welcome to check out on Max Weber's thesis, okay? But here's the point. Whether you go with Max Weber or not, here's the point. The middle class went from just a small group, right, to a larger group after the Reformation. So now you have a three-class society, upper, middle, and lower, and the middle class is starting to get stronger and stronger and stronger. So now I have to take you out of the era after the Reformation, which brings you into the late 1600s and early 1700s. Have to take you out of that area or that segment of time and try to advance a little bit and try to get it like back to America, to US of A. All right? Okay, so we have a three-class society, and you got your upper, middle, and lower. Now, this middle class has grown pretty strong, and it's starting to get a little taste of maybe it can go up a rung and get into this branch up here. And then you have the whole thing that was called the Great Depression. And once again, all of history is filled with lies and hoaxes, and the middle class is rising, and it's using, quote, the stock market. It's getting a lot more wealth, you know, under Hoover and all that stuff, Happy Days and all that stuff. So it's starting to grow. Now, how do you get it to shrink? How do you get it to even disappear? Because the middle class has always been a threat. Now, the lower class has never really been a threat at all to the controllers or the upper class, all right? Because they're just too busy trying to survive, trying to make it, right? The middle class has a little more leeway, and it has some time to think. It has some time to explore ideas. It has some time to talk. It has a slight little bit of power, a slight little bit of money, and it can do something. It can do something. The lower class basically can really do almost nothing, right? Now you might want to disagree on a lot of what I'm saying. That's fine, but wait till I get to the end. All right, so you've got your hoax, Great Depression. Now, what is the Great Depression? Basically, the Great Depression is the upper class seizing and grabbing and getting hold of anything that's in the hands of the middle class and indeed the lower class. Because the great example is the people who were on a farm and they couldn't complete their mortgage. And hence, the bank says you have to foreclose. We have to foreclose. So the banks will seize the property under the guise of the color of law, the hoax system. If you don't cooperate, there'll be police, deputies, whoever there to tell you you're done. You have to get off your farm. So what happens to that farm? Well, of course, it goes to the bank. And then the bank says, who wants to buy it? Who's got the money? Well, guess who has the money? Only up here. So what happens is the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. So you want to shrink this if you're up here, or even get it to disappear. Because remember, the only chance of threat is in the middle class. So what else can you do? Well, it's always great, and it works extremely well. You hoax wars. Now, what does that do? Well, basically speaking, the wars borrow a lot of money that doesn't exist, and then says, how are we going to pay it back? Well, they pay it back by putting it on the heads of what are called straw men or straw women. All right? So that, for example, and I really don't know for sure everything, but so, for example, maybe in my lifetime, I've been paying off the debt of the hoax World War II, maybe. I don't know, I can't figure it all out way and above me and sometimes, but basically speaking, everyone, with respect to straw men or straw women, every straw man, every straw woman is paying for some huge debt by their contribution to the system, which now includes 1/3 taxes, almost 1/3, maybe a little bit higher. Okay, so you're shrinking this by a hoax depression. You're shrinking this by hoax wars. All right. Now, what about right now? Well, right now, we basically have got a war. Check out my video on the 80-year war cycle. It was the most popular video that I had. I think I've got a second runner there for right now. But anyhow, I did it a few years ago, and no one paid any attention to it. It's very simple. It doesn't have fancy artwork. It doesn't have fancy videos. It's just simple math. And I said in one of my other videos before all this happened, all right, again, a simple video, could the year 2021 be another war? Now, by that, I certainly meant bombs and bullets and all that there stuff, all right? However, right now, we actually are in a war. And we're in a war on something invisible. It's a virus. And the language it's used, a lot of it is the language of war. You're seeing factories convert over to war materials, right? And you're seeing a whole attitude of war, but it's a war on a virus. By the way, incidentally, in parentheses, it's actually a war on you and a war on me. You have to check out some of my other videos to get the hang of that. But we are the terrorists, or we are the virus, if you want to put it that way. And I got videos trying to show you all viruses are hoaxes, including your flu virus. Okay? All viruses are hoaxes. They don't exist. Period. Now, if you're still following and you've hung in there with me to the conclusion is get back to the two-class society. Get back where there's either the rich or the poor. Now, where are we, or where are we headed? Well, maybe we're headed in here. It's just what shade of poor are you? All right? I'm a little better than this one, so I'm up here, but I'm still poor. All right? And you got ones way at the bottom. So you feel okay because you're not poor. You're sort of middle class poor, but you're still poor. Now, the rich are what? Richer. Because they prosper. How do they prosper? Well, they're the ones making all these masks, and they're the ones producing all these so-called ventilators or respirators. They're the ones that are engaging in hoax research, okay? They're the ones that are getting government grants and all that kind of stuff. So they're getting richer, right? And we, meaning me and you, my listener, my watcher, we're getting poorer. Now what's going to happen is that because this is an attack on the middle class, it's an attack on middle businesses, right? These middle businesses, your lady that does the hairstyling, your man that cuts your hair, okay? The guy that runs the shop that puts tires on your car, whatever, all right? The little store, the little grocery store, which you'll hardly find any of them anymore. Anything sort of little, small, or middle size is in this category. So how long can these businesses survive? How long can restaurants survive with only takeout orders only? How long? How long? Not long at all, all right? So here's the hoax, and here's how it's done. They'll collapse. They'll fall. They'll just fold. Or they'll be given an alternative. Well, you can get a loan from, guess what? Somewhere up here. Now, your loan will help you stay alive, but it'll put you in debt for the rest of your life. Now, I've already seen this I saw this with some farmers that I was around and worked in that area and worked with these folks who had old-time machinery, and they had to update either for mechanical reasons or regulations that they had to abide by, and they had to get a loan from where? Somewhere up here, a bank, right? And maybe the loan was for $200,000, right? They're still in the middle class, but there's a big debt hanging over them for the rest of their existence on earth. And I remember talking to one farmer. The farmer said that he was getting out, but there was a big debt hanging over his property and all his machinery, and he wanted to know if his son would take it over. Well, his son took it over, but when his son took it over, he took it over with this debt hanging over his head. This huge debt. Maybe $200,000. I don't know the exact amount. So if the middle class is surviving, it's only surviving because there's a debt that hangs over their heads. I might have told you about the gas station owner that pumped gas. He had 2 gas pumps. He worked on my car, and every time I bought gas, I made sure I bought it off of him. His gas was maybe 9 cents, 10 cents a gallon more. But I bought it off him because he was the man that took care of me. He took care of my car. And he took care of me. And he was good, and he was honest. He was a regular, ordinary individual that just wanted to live a good life and be honest, but make a living. And so when I would stop, I would hear him. He would be mumbling and murmuring at the regulations department of the government, and I forget. I'm sorry, I can't come up with the alphabet name at the moment. But they were saying, you must get new gas tanks. You must. They don't meet code. They don't meet regulations. You must, you must, you must. So he was faced with, should I get a loan? And let's just say $200,000. I don't know the amount, but to pull out his old big gas tanks in the ground and put these new ones in that meet regulations. Should I get a loan and let that loan hang over my station in my last final years before I retire, and then maybe try to pass it on to my son-in-law? And he said no. He did not get the loan, so he shut his pumps down. He could not pump gas anymore. All he did was repair cars. And he did retire, by the way, and he did turn it over to his son-in-law, but his son-in-law was not under this big debt. His son-in-law just repaired cars. That's it. Period. But that's the general idea of this. You shrink this middle class, or you put it in debt. Why? To get rid of it. So the ultimate goal is to get back to the way things were prior to the rise of the merchant and prior to the rise of middle class, and just have a 2-class society. You're either very rich or very poor. And how this is done is through different hoaxes. Great Depression hoax, war hoax, and now a virus hoax. So it shrinks the middle class. Incidentally, this ties in with the Chicago School of Economics. You can see a video I have on that, okay? The Chicago School of Economics trained individuals how to do this. And I'll let you research that one and go to that video. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Again, how do you live your life? Well, you live it for the one who is the way, the truth, and the life. When you're thinking about things, you ask for